Playoff selection show last night had Alabama at 8th. And I think we're all sick and tired of Alabama not getting the respect by this committee. And we feel like there might be more to this. Why all the BS? Is Alabama really the 8th best team in the country? Is Oregon better than Alabama? We're going to talk about it. Welcome to the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Alabama lives right here, and we want you to live here as well. If you're not a subscriber, make sure that you jump on board, and let's talk about this playoff committee BS. All right, he's Chad Anderson, and I'm Mick Gillispie. Chad, I got finished doing our watch party last night, and I just kept thinking about it, and the more and more, it just pissed me off. Like, it's complete shit that Alabama is not ranked ahead of Oregon. Their schedule, their strength of schedule. You start putting the numbers up, and there is a clear bias. And is now because Oregon and Washington are going to the Big Ten, do we have to sit around and push them up, boost them like we do the Big Ten every year before they get their annual butt kicking in the college football playoff?
Yeah, it's we talked about it last night. Like, what's going on? I said it over and over that I get it. You can balance everything, take everything into account. Look at strength of schedule, look at strength of record, look at another metric called game control, use the eye test. That's fine. I get it. But Oregon is behind not only Alabama, but they're further behind Texas, to be quite honest. We're pissed off. Imagine a Texas fan right now. Like, both Alabama and Texas have a complete argument and have a right to, and they deserve to be pissed off at how far ahead Oregon is in these rankings, because Oregon doesn't match up in any of those.
Right.
The eye test is what everybody weights it on. And really, Mick, on the eye test, like, they blew out Utah on the road, who is now a 4-loss team and they're unranked. They blew them out in Salt Lake City, and it was a big national TV game. College Game Day was there, and that was the whole thing. And then Oregon went in there and just smoked them. But Utah is a team with a backup quarterback all year. They don't even have Cam Rising. He's coming back next year. And their current quarterback is probably going to transfer out because Rising's coming back.
Right.
They're just weighting everything on the fact that Oregon barely lost to Washington on the road, and then they smoked Utah. But Texas could say, hey, look, we beat Alabama on the road.
Well, that's right. And that's the best win this year, was Texas's win over Alabama. I mean, they're still riding off a week 2 win. Alabama should get the same respect that Oregon got for losing to Washington, because somehow, even though they lost, the committee is giving that to them as a win or a draw. They lost. Alabama lost too. They lost too. Yeah. But for some reason, these losses are weighed differently. That's the first thing. This is a non-conference game that Alabama played against one of the best teams in the country. No one else up there's on that committee, on that list, except Texas, went out and played someone in a tough non-conference game, right? So that's the best win. Washington's win over Oregon would be the second best win. And then, what's the third best win that any of these teams have? Michigan over Ohio State. Well, then after that, what is it? Well, I mean, let's just throw it up there. Let's just compare Oregon. And we'll do the 1-loss teams, and Alabama leads in every category except strength of record, and they're actually leading that too, right? I mean, they're maybe close to it, but top 35 wins.
Yeah, top 35 wins.
Quad 1.
This is the Football Power Index. So what they're saying is this isn't college basketball, but if you want to kind of put it in the same perspective, this is what we're doing here. And we're saying, hey, this is a quad 1 victory. And so Alabama has 5. Texas has 5. Ohio State has 3. And Oregon has 3. Bowl eligible opponents, which means 6 victories for your opponent. Alabama and Texas each with 7. Ohio State with 6. Oregon with 5. Wins versus winning Power 5 opponents. Alabama 5. Texas, Ohio State 4 apiece. Oregon with 3. Strength of record. Ohio State 5. Texas 6. Alabama 7. Oregon 8. The only metric that's not on here that Oregon does lead in as far as like Alabama is concerned is game control. But again, every single metric here, nothing gives Oregon the edge. Look, Mick, they're either last or tied for last in each of these buckets.
Yeah.
But they still just have a fascination with the Ducks.
Well, I think the fascination comes from the bias that this committee has had for a long time. The SEC has the best players in the country. They have, and that is proven on signing day every year when they get the most talented guys. Where do the 5 stars go? Where do the 4 stars go? Yeah. Who's going to what school? And how many blue chippers do they have?
Right.
Alabama lost 2 of the best 3 players in the entire draft in the NFL last year. It took a few games to get them back on track. And now all of a sudden, the next group is here. But for Ohio State to be ranked in the college football playoff, like they have no shot, 0 shot of playing for a championship. 0%. 0%. They're not going to win a championship. They have no more games. And you have 7 other teams that are in that list that have a shot. So why would you even have them above Alabama and Texas? Unless you're setting up for some kind of, hey, you know what, you're the first team out. But if you're ranking this on the best 4 teams, I think Alabama is one of the best 4 teams now. And you're supposed to be ranking it on the best 4 teams now. Their quarterback's one of the best in the country. They have one of the best defenses in the country. They have the best coach that ever walked on a sideline. They've lost 5 games in the last, how many years, Chad? 3, 4 years?
3 years. 5 games, 3 years, and we talked about that. 3 of them were walk-offs.
Yeah, 3 of them.
5 losses were walk-offs.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So I just wanted to pull that up and talk about it. And basically, the SEC better get ready. They better get ready to fight their ass off, because when Alabama beats Georgia, this is going to be something that we're going to have to sit here and duke out. Are you really going to let this committee put in a team from a conference that doesn't even exist next year, that hasn't won a championship? When's the last time the Pac-12 won a championship? USC?
Yeah.
So and now all of a sudden that this year this is the conference where all the good players are? I mean, come on, give me a break.
Well, the only other team, and I'm going to applaud them for a moment and then tell them they don't deserve to be in, and that's Florida State. Because when you were mentioning some of those out of conferences, don't forget Florida State scheduled LSU, and they whipped LSU in week 1, especially in that second half. But Florida State at the same time, their quarterback went down, and it sucks, and it's unfortunate. But Reese Davis always talks about this. There's always the argument of, are you putting in the best 4 teams or the 4 most deserving teams? And this is why I love the expanded playoff as well, because the SEC, and this is going to be a perfect example if Bama wins and gets left out. The SEC is a victim of its own success, because the SEC has 5 teams in the top 13 of the college football playoff. 5 in the top 13. Let that sink in for a moment. Okay. No other conference has that. And so you're going to leave out the champion of that conference, is what you're trying to tell us, that they don't deserve to play for the national championship. Florida State, you don't deserve to be there. I get it. It sucks, but it's luck of the draw. You can't tell me Florida State is a matchup that's worthy against Georgia or against Michigan, say they're the 4 or whatever. They just don't deserve to play in that kind of a situation, because their team is not a top 4 best team. If you're weighing everything, if you're going resume, eye test, current roster, best, most deserving, the whole thing, they're not one of the 4 best. Maybe on paper, they got to that point to be considered. But once you lose your starting quarterback, you're not one of the 4 best. And don't give me the Jalen Tua comparison, because Rotabaker is not Tua Tagovailoa. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So Florida State is another problem. And in the committee, I said it last night, it's a coup. It's set up. It is perfectly set up for them to have arguments and reasons as to why they're going to leave Alabama out.
Yeah. Hey, look, Alabama fatigue. Alabama's why the college football. They're one of the reasons why college football is so popular, by the way. And they shouldn't be punished for having won a bunch of championships. And they shouldn't be punished against teams that they've had in the past. So SEC Commissioner Paul Feinbaum, all you power brokers, you better get ready, because when the upset happens, these guys they're setting up to try to keep Alabama and the SEC out of the national championship. And for you other SEC fans that are like, so what? Well, could be your team one time.
Yeah.
Maybe not this time, but it could be your team.
That's funny, because remember that if you're, say, Ole Miss right now laughing at Alabama, because next year you would be Ole Miss laughing or begging to be in the 11 spot. Like, right? Like Ole Miss right now, next year, they would be the controversial, well, who should be 11 and who should be 12, or 11 versus 13, because you only get 12 teams in and one's a G5 team. So, yeah, keep that in mind, because next year it's going to be you.
Yep. And if any of those, Washington, Florida State, Michigan, if they were in the SEC, they wouldn't have to worry about being undefeated, because they would have lost by now. And I'm sorry, just to tell you that Michigan's not that good. You'll find out if Georgia beats Alabama, or if Alabama gets in, they'll be taken care of, and they'll feel just like Ohio State feels this week. All right, Chad, tell us about Modern Lending and what you do with the mortgages.
Just helping people out on getting a house. Been doing it 13 years. Me and or my teams have helped put 10,000 families in homes or refinance and save money, whether that's just lowering your mortgage payment or getting rid of that awful credit card debt, which is at an all-time high in the United States. So people don't always realize this right now. Even though rates are a little bit higher, house prices are a little bit better. So still a good time to buy. And 1 out of every 3 people right now are refinancing and taking cash out of their home to pay off credit card debt. So if we can help you, info's on the screen there. ChadAnderson.info is the website. Phone number's there as well. You can schedule a meeting on my website directly with me. You've got my calendar. Set it up. We do a 10-minute call, whatever you like, but would love to help if you're in the market for it.
All right, guys, roll tide. We'll talk to you soon.